Halloween night. A small American town. 15 years ago.
Happy Halloween! Welcome to the Damian and Devlin show, and this is our review of Halloween, the 1979 horror directed by John Carpenter and starring Jamie Lee Curtis, Donald Pleasance, PJ Soles. And this is one of the movies that is considered to be one of the groundbreaking slasher films. It's not the first, but it certainly was one of the biggest when it first came out. And we're reviewing this on the week where it's actually celebrating its 40th anniversary. And this movie is still regarded as one of the greatest horror films of all time. I have seen it multiple times, although I did avoid it for the longest time because when I was a little kid, I heard Siskel and Ebert. For you younger people, they were really famous reviewers.
They may or may not have been as good as us.
No, yeah.
That's debatable.
But anyhow, they showed clips, and those clips were enough to give me nightmares and keep me away from this movie. When I finally watched it, it freaked me out even more. And I will tell you my true feelings of this film as we go on to the review. But you saw this the first time a couple of years ago.
2 years ago. And I saw it for the very first time with you. And it was right before we decided to start doing this show. And I think this is one of the ones that actually said to me, you know, we talked a lot about it. There were a lot of things that we had to discuss about this movie. And it's what pushed me to say, hey, you know what? Let's actually do this movie review show. Because there's a lot to talk about with this movie. It is groundbreaking, as he's already stated. It's revolutionary in a lot of ways. And just on top of that, it is a great horror film all on its own. So there's a ton of stuff that we can talk about with regards to this movie.
It also spawned a huge franchise and for the longest time was one of the most successful independent movies. This movie cost, I believe, under $1 million to make, and it made huge money at the box office, and everybody was talking about, hey, have you seen that Halloween film? The story is simple. Michael Myers is when he first kills, he's a child, and he comes back on the 25th anniversary of when he did his first kill, and he starts stalking a young babysitter named Laurie Strode, played by Jamie Lee Curtis.
He starts stalking Jamie Lee Curtis, the actress.
And basically winds up going on a killing spree. And that basically is simple. Everything about this movie is simple, but it's still a masterpiece in so many ways that I love its simplicity. I think a lot of horror movies could go back and still learn stuff from Halloween. And with that in mind, why don't you start with your positives?
I mean, Michael Myers has to be one of the huge positives of this movie. And, you know, you've got Freddy Krueger, you've got Jason Voorhees, even today's standards, you've got, what's the kid's name from Trick or Treat?
Sam, you've
got Billy, the little doll from Saw, you have Annabelle from The Conjuring, but I think Michael Myers is one of the best, if not the best, horror movie icons. I mean, how can you not be enthralled with who he is, just seeing him wearing his plain coveralls, and he's got his William Shatner ghost mask on. It's just an iconic image. Of course, he's always got his huge knife there that he's carrying around. The character is just phenomenal. He's intimidating, he's strong, he's scary, and he just is everywhere all at once, it seems. He's a persistent threat. And just when you think like you're gonna get this guy, we talked about it, his superhuman strength just comes out of nowhere and he just dominates whoever's going after him, and it's just breathtaking. Speaking of breathtaking as well, it's really unsettling the fact that whenever he's around, you know he's around because you constantly hear the
the breathing
through his mask, which is a nice touch because you could simply just have the guy standing there and he's effective, but the fact that you have his heavy breathing on top of that just adds to the unsettling nature of it.
I always wondered if he was inspired by Star Wars with that, because Star Wars came out a year before this. So it could be, because that breathing with Darth Vader became kind of his thing. And
you never know, it very well could be. I just honestly think it's because he's wearing the mask and it's kind of hard to breathe for prolonged periods of time in there. That's what I think. Or honestly, he could just be a mouth breather. We never really know. Regardless, it's effective and it's unsettling. I really do like the script. It's, as you said, incredibly simple. Babysitter goes to babysit on Halloween night. Michael Myers breaks free of wherever it is that he broke free from. I won't say where or why. And then he just goes on a killing spree.
Well, it's interesting because you kept asking me questions about things like, why is he stalking her? Why thing? And I'm not saying it in a bad way, but when I answered his questions, I realized that all the answers I got were from other movies or stuff I had read about it, because the script keeps it all mystery.
It does.
And the only reason I knew some of the answers was because I had known so much about this movie, but I like that they don't really reveal all that much in the movie.
Mean, I kind of like that they don't reveal it, but at the same time, yeah, I was asking these questions, and I'm glad that you were there to answer these questions for me, because it makes a little bit more sense. I'll touch on that in my negatives, but I do like the script. It's very simple, and it's very effective. Let's talk about the big elephant in the room with regards to how can you not talk about it. The theme, the Halloween theme, is such an iconic theme. It's so good. The first time I watched this movie, I'd heard the theme hundreds of times, of course I had. But the first time I watched this movie, and it starts off with just a slow camera going towards a jack-o'-lantern that's lit while the credits come, and it's just playing the Halloween theme. And the first time I watched it, I felt my hair stand up on edge, because it's just that good.
Give credit to the composer. Who is it?
John Carpenter.
Yes, that's the great thing about it.
He not only directed it, but he made the music as well, which is absolutely phenomenal. I love the Halloween theme, and going past the Halloween theme, just the other music throughout the movie is super, super effective. And
yeah.
There's one actual, I don't know if it's actually part of a song, but it's like kind of a special effect. But it first happens at the beginning of the movie when a light turns on, it's like,
yeah.
It's like this weird sound effect, and I just like it. It works so well. And it could very easily come off as cheesy in like late 1970s, but it just works.
I believe they use it in the trailer, but don't quote me on that.
Well, it's possible it showed up in the trailer to this review. Who knows?
Since you're talking about the soundtrack, one thing I notice more and more when I watch this, the thing I love about Michael Myers' theme, is it always shows up right when he shows up, and it kind of sounds like a heartbeat to me. That your heartbeat's increasing.
Kind of.
Like, it's like not an obvious heartbeat, but the pacing seems like it's...
Well, it's got very
every time you see him, my heartbeat's pacing.
Yeah, and that's why it's got like an anxiety, because you can hear that...
Yeah, it's definitely
in the background.
Anxiety, yeah.
So, absolutely, I would totally agree that works well. I like the performance of Jamie Lee Curtis, absolutely, as Laurie or Laura? Laurie, yeah, Laurie, and she became an iconic final girl in this, and then went on to have a very, very successful career, because this was her first movie, was it not?
One of her first. I think she may have done some supporting stuff, but then she got looped into like doing a whole bunch of horror films, like she did The Fog and Prom Night and stuff. But she eventually got on as a I
haven't seen any of those. I first was introduced to Jamie Lee Curtis in that Arnold Schwarzenegger movie. What's it called?
True Lies.
True Lies, and I actually really liked her in that. Then I knew that she was in Halloween later in my life. So the fact that starting off very much similar to Sigourney Weaver in Alien, this was one of her first major roles. I think she nails it. She does a fantastic job with it.
Yeah, she got labeled a Scream Queen, not only because of Halloween, because she did so many horror movies. And for those young people that don't know, her famous parents are Tony Curtis, but her mother was Janet Leigh, who was the famous shower lady in Psycho. So she actually has a heritage of horror in
absolutely.
some ways.
So I can't say enough about Jamie Lee Curtis. She's absolutely wonderful. I actually do like Donald Pleasance's performance. I think he's really good with what he does. More on his character later. But I think the actor does a good job portraying exactly who Loomis is. So that's really well done. And just honestly, it's a fantastic horror movie. If you like your classic slashers, this is definitely a place to start, because not only did it start off, obviously it wasn't the first, but it started off the whole horror icon frenzy, which blew up throughout the 80s. We had Freddy introduced, we had Jason, but it started here with Michael Myers, so definitely check this one out.
And it also inspired every holiday having a
absolutely
thing, you know, not just Halloween, but you started getting like Friday the 13th, April Fool's Day,
Christmas.
Yes.
Christmas.
Well, Christmas technically came before that, but we'll talk about that another time. Are you done your positives?
Yeah.
I will go with John Carpenter. Yes, incredible composer, and he composes for a lot of his movies. In fact, right now he tours a lot in concert and playing parts of it, and apparently it's a great show if you get a chance to see it. One of his first director, I don't know if this is his first or not, but his use of shades and lighting and just the whole stalker thing is incredible. This movie unnerves me, and I was telling Damian, it's not actually when the killing starts, it's just those little moments where the stalking, just Michael Myers, just you look out a window and he's behind blowing, clothes on laundry. He's behind a hedge and then he disappears. That stuff creeps me out because when I was younger, I lived in a neighborhood that was like that with the big hedges and stuff. So the stalking he gets right. He uses it from his angle. And again, he's not the first director to show, the killer. Like the very first sequence in this, you see that's a mind trip when they put you behind the knife. And they actually do a scene at the beginning where you are the one that you're seeing the perspective of the killer. And it might not be the first movie that does that, but it was one of the first to really bring it on home. Like people started using it all the time now. But there's a real unnerving, settling thing that they're forcing you into that. And I like that he uses that, since Michael Myers is based totally on the fact, like Donald Pleasance reminds us over and over again, that this is not a human, this is not a man, there's something not right about him. The fact that they play those mind tricks on you and actually put you behind the knife. There's a sequence in this that's the greatest moment in this, and when I watched it first time with you, I love that you loved it too.
Yeah.
It's a scene, it doesn't really give it away because you just don't know where it's going to come in, but there's a scene where Jamie Lee Curtis is just standing behind a black door, a dark room, and then suddenly the use of light, Michael just appears there, and it's almost like he's stepping out of the shadows, but it's just beautifully done, and it's just one of the many things. And I'm telling you, I have seen this movie over and over again. I laugh at a lot now because I see a lot of the problems with it now, but it's still, tonight, I will tell you, I am going to be going past every dark room and seeing that face light up in all of them. I will be terrified. So, too much information, but when I have to go to the bathroom tonight, I will be talking myself out of it a couple times, or doing the fastest run back and forth that you will ever see.
Yes.
So
it's a shame we don't live together, because if I were living here with you and I heard you get up to go to the bathroom at night, I would start to play the Halloween theme.
Oh, that's
just
lovely.
for you.
That's lovely.
And slowly increase the volume the closer you get to the door.
Lovely. So John Carpenter does a great thing. I also, seeing it many times, I've noticed he plays with shadows. He plays with a lot of things. In the original script, Michael Myers was only known as the Shape. And I love that because they don't even think of him as human. But then there is moments that I like that they do hint that Michael is human. There's a scene where he kind of plays a joke. He's puts on another mask on top of his mask. I don't want to give it away, but it's kind of funny because it almost gives you a hint that Michael Myers may have a sense of humor.
Yeah, he essentially dresses up for Halloween. He puts like a sheet over him and looks like a ghost.
But what's funny is he cuts the two eyes out.
Yes.
And I can't picture a mad killer, but I give it to him because I go, I like that Michael shows that he's human. Maybe if Donald Pleasance saw that, he might say, oh, maybe there is still hope for him.
Maybe there's hope. Maybe I should have tried a little harder.
You hit pretty much all the other stuff. Jamie Lee Curtis is wonderful in this. You find her endearing. You're on her side immediately. I some of the other characters a little over the top, but I've seen worse in horror movies, so I consider them okay.
Hold on, just wait. If you thought
Oh, I know.
Stan from It was bad.
Okay, you've got some negatives. We'll still keep with my positives. I'm a big fan of PJ Souls, so it's nice to see her in this movie.
I'm glad that you're a fan of her rosebuds.
Oh, don't go there. Anyhow, I liked a lot of the stuff in here. The music, you mentioned that already. Great. It's one of the soundtracks I love to play around Halloween. Even if it creeps me out, I still like it. As I said, I like my adrenaline going up. That's why I watch horror movies and stuff. I just think it's a wonderfully paced movie. Yes, I see its problems. The more I watch it, I see that there's a lot of problems, but I also remember it's a small independent film, and since Damian likes to be more negative on movies than me, I'm going to let him take most of them, because I've only got a couple that I'm going to bring up.
Like, I'm just doing my job. I'm out there supporting.
But you know me, if I love a movie, I'll overlook things. But I have a couple. Let's see if you hit mine.
Yeah. So my first negative is going to have to be the fact that there doesn't seem to be a lot of activity going on here in this neighborhood. It's like a suburban neighborhood, and you see kids out for Halloween before it gets dark, and then suddenly it just becomes a ghost town. It's a huge negative for me, because you even pointed out, because you were alive during this time.
I trick-or-treated during the 70s.
You were alive, so you know this better than I do, but if anybody's running down the street screaming, help me, nobody's gonna just ignore them. Like, maybe one or two might, because they'd be afraid, but you're gonna have to expect that there's somebody in the neighborhood that's gonna open the door and go, is everything okay out here? What's going on? Yes, come in, little girl who's covered in blood.
And I made a comment that back in the 70s, you would always see kids almost out till 10 o'clock trick-or-treating, and they seem to disappear really early in this.
Yeah.
Like, I know they're playing the whole, oh, it's dark now, so everybody's going in, but you would always see the older kids going around at that point, and there's nobody on the street. And I think it just was like you said, they probably didn't have the money for it.
They probably didn't,
because there is scenes that are almost unnerving, that it's like Michael killed everybody in this town because nobody is on the street.
Yeah, and like, the more I think about it, yeah, sure, maybe it was a budgetary concern, but they showed an explicit shot of school being let out, and there was like easy 60 kids there, and they could have taken all 60 of these kids and said, here, run up and down the street pretending like you're doing trick-or-treating.
The one, although it depends if you like Halloween 2 or not, and I won't give any spoilers if you've never seen it, because I know you haven't, but one thing that is really bad is Halloween 2 takes place the exact same night of Halloween. It's about a little bit later, and the first thing you'll notice in Halloween 2 is the amount of kids that are on the street when the movie starts. It's like, where were these kids? When they wait till 10 o'clock to go out? So I love Halloween 2 as well, but that's one of my big problems with Halloween.
So that's a negative for me, is that obviously I'm going to touch on PJ Potts or whatever her name is.
PJ Souls.
PJ Potts, PJ Souls, PJ Rosebuds. Her character is just obnoxious. Totally obnoxious. I can't count how many times the girl says totally. And she's okay looking. Sure, if I were in the 70s, maybe I'd be interested in her. But the fact that she says totally 500 times in the span of a minute just drives me insane.
I've seen enough horror movies that there are worse characters out there. And these characters were annoying, but not that bad.
Stan from It.
Would you stop with him?
Stan from It. Then there's this girl who just won't stop saying totally. I'm sure if Michael Myers heard her speak for longer than he did, he would have just gone ballistic on her, because she is just ridiculously obnoxious. So she's a negative for me as well. I do also have to talk about the character of Loomis. Donald Pleasance does a great job as an actor. He does a great job, but the character of Loomis is just ridiculous. The guy's standing outside of Michael Myers' house for majority of the movie, just wonder when he's going to show up. And then he decides to go on a random walk through the neighborhood, show up conveniently at the right time. He doesn't even do his job right as a psychiatrist. He even makes mention of it at one point. I spent 8 years trying to get through to this boy, and then I spent 10 years just trying to keep him locked up because I gave up on my job. It's ridiculous. He's a horrible character. I think he's the bad guy of the movie more than Michael is, because we never even know what Loomis did to Michael. He could have made him this way more so than he already was, because, and the reason I say this is when you are looking through Michael's eyes as a child after the first killing, you get to see him come out of the house, and he looks off. He looks like he's like, what did I just do? And he looks like he's in shock. So maybe Loomis actually made Michael the cold-hearted killer that he is more than he likes to lead on. And I just can't stand the character Loomis. I think he's horrible. Absolutely terrible. As for other negatives, I'm thinking about them, and I don't really have much. It's a pretty effective movie. It's pretty good. But those negatives right there, no.
Well, I love this movie, so as I always say, it's hard for me to find negatives. So when I do find negatives, I do totally agree with the...
I remembered one. I'll let you finish, though.
Okay.
One.
I will agree with you. It is unnerving that there's nobody around. And when people scream and yelling, help, help, and like they literally, nobody comes to their doors, I don't buy that. Because in the 70s... I don't buy that.
Well, even in this day and age, like, I'm the kind of person that I'll open my door when I hear a ruckus going on outside and check to make sure that everything's okay. And if it's not, I'll call the police. I'm that kind of person, so if I exist in this day and age, somebody else out there must exist too. Especially, yeah, in the 70s.
Yeah, like, so that is unnerving. And it might have been budgetary restrictions or something, but it does stand out. It's kind of creepy though. I like it. So I don't, my other big negative is Michael being able to drive a car.
Well, I'll hold my tongue for now.
Okay. I don't drive myself. Like, I've never learned how to drive. But Michael is institutionalized when he's 6 years old. And when he steals a car after his escape from the mental institute, he shows no problems of driving a car. Like, literally beautifully driving a car. Like, there's no choppiness that I think you would have playing with the brake or something, unless they're showing movies, instructional movies.
So that's why I wanted to hold my tongue and let you finish, is because right before Loomis goes out looking for Michael, he's talking to another doctor, I assume, at the asylum, and they make mention that Loomis thinks somebody's been giving Michael lessons, remember?
Yeah, but that to me is a weak part in the script, because who is teaching a mental patient who's been there since he was 6?
I get that, but at the same time, again, we don't really see what goes on at the mental asylum, right? So he could have been doing this in secret. Maybe he broke out a couple of times. But from
even what we see, that Michael seems to know what's going on, but doesn't know what's going on, do you really think he's like, yeah, then what do you do? Then what do you do? I cannot see Michael sitting watching somebody teaching him how to drive without like killing them. So if they didn't see anybody around the medical,
he had a purpose in mind. I'm sure if necessary he could function as a normal person. But that's what I'm saying. He broke out at the beginning of the movie. He breaks out. And maybe he's broken out in the past and just taken cars and tried and practiced until he got it right. And then that night just happened to be the one that got it.
And here's a part of the script that I've never understood, because I know a lot of horror movies use this now, because they created this trope. But they kind of hint that he decided to break out on the anniversary of the deaths.
Okay, yeah.
But why this particular year?
Yeah, I don't know that.
You know, because I think it's like the 15th anniversary, because it's 63, I think, when it happened. So it's 78. 16.
Yeah.
Math
people.
But Loomis, okay, I'll give you this. Loomis has some issues, and Loomis is like, well, he's going because of this anniversary. What's special about this one than 2 years ago wouldn't have been? Shouldn't he be trying to break out every Halloween? But he just... Anyhow, it's always a thing, like, why the anniversary? If this guy's just a calculated killer, why doesn't he just go out and kill? Instead of like... Oh, check the calendar. Oh, good, the anniversary's coming up. That tells me that Michael may have a little bit more on the ball. And the superhuman strength, I don't question, because I don't know if it's an adrenaline thing, but there is definitely some superhuman strength, because there's some kills that are a little unrealistic, and he's walking around with a tombstone at one point that...
So the tombstone I can agree with. And you know what? Obviously, prisoners, they don't have a lot to do. Mental asylum patients, I don't know what it is that they do. But Loomis states very many times that Michael just sat in his room and stared at a wall. We don't know what else he did. Maybe he's doing push-ups, maybe he's doing curls with his bed, who knows? But obviously this guy had the time to work out. Maybe he did. Maybe he did. Maybe he used that to get
So there are some flaws in the scripts, but... so you said you thought of another one?
I thought of two, actually. One of them is... I have a problem with the beginning of the movie when you're seeing through Michael's eyes as a kid. And so you see his arm at one point.
Yeah.
And obviously you told me, and I did not know this, but you told me that it wasn't actually the kid actor doing this.
No.
It was apparently some woman. And you can tell that whoever this actress is that was standing in for young Michael wasn't actually holding the camera, because at one point the arm is shown reaching down for a knife. And you can see the body like bend to go pick it up. So I noticed that, I picked up on it, and I thought it was strange. And then in that same instance as well, when it shows the killing, you're seeing what's happening, and then it's just suddenly looks up at the knife. Like, I want to make sure that I get this.
Well, he's a kid. He's a kid.
If I'm killing somebody, kid or not, I'm going to look at what I'm doing, not, oh, this is a good image of my hand coming down with the knife. I thought that was a little over the top.
Maybe he didn't want to see his sister's boobies because he was offended that they had sex.
Maybe. I don't know.
Hey, look, the knife, not cutting boobies.
Regardless, I thought it was, both of those things were a little over the top and awkward and ridiculous.
Yeah, the actress too who was getting stabbed seemed like she was almost enjoying it. She was caressing her breasts a little too much. Like, she didn't look like, oh my god, wounds. She was just like...
She did not react in
I shouldn't be doing that. That's going to wind up in an opening segment, me rubbing my breasts.
She did not react in a way that I probably would react to getting stabbed. I'll just leave it at that. And then my last negative, this is a spoiler alert. So this is a spoiler alert. So
because we never spoil movies here.
If you don't want to know what I'm about to talk about, please skip ahead about 2 minutes. 2 minutes. But you've been warned. At 2 different points in the movie, Jamie Lee Curtis's character seemingly kills Michael. And both of those times, she has Michael's knife in her hand and then just leaves it next to his body. And I don't know what she's thinking, because she does it more than once.
Yeah, she does.
She does it twice. Once I can forgive her because it's a traumatic event. She thinks that it's over, forgetful, sure. But then she does it again. And I just don't know why she'd do that. Especially after he gets up the second time and comes after her with the same knife she left.
Yeah, the first time, there's no way she should have known that he was dead. And the second time, she might as well have just put it right in his hand, because she just literally drops it right next to his body. Like, come on.
Yeah, so there you go. Spoiler over, but I can't get over that. Every time I see that, it's the second time I've seen this movie, you're such an idiot. So that's that. What are you going to give this movie?
I'm shining up my stars because this is a nostalgic classic. Don't give my review
No,
away.
I'm going to guess. I'm going to guess.
Yeah.
And I might be wrong on this, but I'm going to guess.
What?
Because you said it has its flaws.
Yes.
So now I'm thinking that you're probably not going to give it 5 stars. But you love this movie, so I know it's probably going to be above a 3.5. I say you're going to give it a 4.5.
5 stars! I love this movie. The flaws I only seen from repeated viewings. The first time I was so creeped out. And any movie that can creep me out when I was in my 20s and still creep me out when I'm in my 50s, I gotta give 5 stars. Yeah. It's still effective. And you know what? I get entertained by the mistakes. So, yes, I'm going to give it a nostalgic factor. It's still in my top 20 movies of all time.
There you go. So, I'm not going to give it such a high mark. I do enjoy it. I think it is one of the better Halloween movies. Not the Halloween franchise movies, but just, okay, so what I should say is I think it's a better horror movie.
Yes, yes.
Better horror movie than a lot of them out there. I'm giving this one, and you're probably going to be surprised at this, I'm giving this one a 4.5.
I am, with all the mistakes you found.
With all the mistakes, I think it is 4.5 because of the cultural milestones, just not only with the character, with the movie, with the music. Like, you got the trifecta there. And that's impossible at times to pull off. And they do it so well, especially considering at the time it was an independent film with such a low budget. So absolutely, it's getting a 4.5 from me.
Excellent.
Thank you so much for joining us on our Halloween adventure, culminating right before Halloween. So if you've not checked it out yet, make sure when Halloween does roll around tomorrow, you definitely pop this one in. Maybe even go out and check the sequel that just released as well. You never know, you might like it. Thank you so much. As always, like, comment, subscribe. We always love having you with us here. And I hope you have a happy Halloween.
Halloween, the night he came home.